What's up, Tiger fans? It's Morgan Thomas here with another video on our YouTube channel. This time we're going to ask, was the 2020-2021 Clemson basketball season a success? Highly debated topic here, and I want to see if you can get in on it. Get in on the comments, and we'll hear what our co-hosts have to say tonight about it. Before you do that, though, make sure you like and subscribe to this video so that you don't miss any of our exclusive Clemson YouTube content that we put out every single week. All right, guys, we're talking about it. Was Clemson's 2020-2021 men's basketball season a success? Some people say, yes, it was a success. They went further with less. They only had really Amir Sims, and they went all the way to a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. They were a 5 seed in the ACC tournament. They had 10 wins in the ACC. They finished with a 16-8 record overall. So by far, if you look at, like, say, the magazine I bought, Lindy's, college basketball preseason magazine, they didn't have Clemson being the fifth best or the fifth seed in the ACC. They didn't really have them doing really well at all in the ACC. They definitely didn't have them going to the NCAA tournament. And their comment was that Amir Sims is all you got, and the three-point shooting is terrible, and the scoring overall is terrible. And so Brad Brownell's team is going to continue to rebuild and try to find what will work around some freshmen, sophomores that he has on the team. Big contrast from what they had a couple of years ago, where they had almost every senior on the team and underperformed, I believe. So I'll go ahead and give you a sneak peek into what I think. I do think it was a success. I'm not going to say it was not a success. Anytime you make the NCAA tournament, considering that Clemson basketball doesn't always consistently do that, especially getting a 10-win ACC season, I think that was really good as well. Considering all the issues with COVID, not having as good of fans as they had, they played really well at home. And, the game that I went to was really fun and exciting, and they were into it. They did have that COVID issue, where they came back and lost like 3 games in a row where it was getting blown out. That wasn't fun for sure. We knew they had to rely on Amir Sims to do everything, and he did that. He led in points. He led in rebounds. He led in assists. He led in blocks. The only thing he didn't really lead in was steals, and Nick Honor got that. All right, so before we get into more statistical speak, Alan, let's get your top-level review. Then we'll go into kind of more detail. Let's go around top-level review of, do you think it was a success this season for Clemson's men's basketball?
Well, I got to tell you, that's a tricky question, for one. I guess it depends on who you're comparing, the results to. Are you comparing them to the people in the ACC who picked them, the Lindy's magazine picked them like 10th or 11th? Or are you comparing them to what we said? Because we said at the beginning of the year, I'm pretty sure that this was a tournament team. And could potentially be, I guess their ceiling was about Sweet 16, something like that. I think that's kind of what we thought. I thought they were for sure a tournament team. And we kind of get into this season, and sure enough, they do make the tournament, even though it looked iffy there at that, one stretch in the middle. They made the tournament. That's a very good thing. It's not like you're playing some, garbage team in the first round. Rutgers is a pretty good team this year, I believe it was 7-10 seed. And I mean, that's not an easy matchup by any means. It's certainly disappointing to lose that game. It was a poor shooting night, which is pretty typical of Clemson this year. Heck, it's been typical of Clemson for a few years now. We're very inconsistent scoring offensively. That's what we've done. We just have not shot well behind the arc, and when we're getting open shots, and that's a tough thing to do. So, I mean, was it a success? I think if you make the NCAA tournament consistently for Clemson, you can consider that a success to some point. I think you got to get more consistent winning matchups that you're favored, and flat out, they were a 7 seed. Rutgers was a 10 seed. That's a game they should technically win. And so, yeah, it would have been nice to see them get past the first round. I think had they gotten past the first round, it would have been a no doubt successful season. The problem is you see that loss immediately, you're ousted in the tournament, and it was just by a few points. It was I think it was a 4-point game. It's a tough loss, but I would say it was a successful season. But again, I can understand the kind of groans and aches and pains from everybody else, especially wanting to change at the top for sure. But I get it. I'm kind of indifferent right now. I think it was I would call it a successful season, but again, I understand people's angst about it.
Houston, I know you have some thoughts on it as well. I mean, Alan, I agree. I think that, it depends. I was worried you're going to give me that politician speak of like, Was it a success or not? Well, let me tell you about when I was a young boy in Europe. No, I do think that it's difficult to say, considering that when you look at the individual matchups, they did lose to Miami, which in the ACC tournament, which was kind of a bummer. I think really it's kind of more recency biased as well from some of the fans. Now I know Houston will have his points here, but they did go. I have down here they went 7-4 in their last 11, but only 1-3 in their last 4. So their most recent games, they didn't really do very well, especially games where there's more people watching, more fringe fans, if you will, watching in the NCAA tournament and in the ACC tournament. Miami, close game, lost that one. Kind of seemed uninspired there a little bit, in my opinion. And the NCAA tournament, again, I feel like, as I've mentioned to you guys before, the tourney is all about having super strong guards. If you can get two that are dominant, and I thought that Nick Honor was going to do that for this team. And Alamir Dawes also had some glimpses of that as well. He's still young, but Nick Honor didn't really show up towards the end of the game, wasn't even in the game towards at the end there. I was very disappointed in his second half of that game against Rutgers. It can't be Amir Sims all by himself doing literally everything. And I think if your forward is your strong guy, it makes it even harder in the tournament as well. It just seemed like they couldn't get anything going positively there. Another thing for me that again, it goes back to this team's not really that fun to watch. Even the analysts there on TBS were kind of joking, like, well, that was a boring one, but then some fans like to point out that they'll say the Virginia game was amazing, great fundamentals, and then they'll turn around and say the Clemson game was boring. So not very consistent there from those analysts there, like Charles Barkley and those guys, but still love those guys. All right, Houston, I'm gonna give you your shot here. What's your top level thoughts, and we're going to get some statistics that I have, but what's your top level thoughts of this?
Well, first off, any Virginia game is boring, and I love it when they lose in the first round. I think when you run a JV offense like they do in this stupid system that they run, you deserve to get beaten by Ohio in the round of 64. So no apologies there. Look, I'm going to be the person to just rip the Band-Aid off and say this because I feel like I've been frustrated about this for a long time. I don't view this as a successful end of the season. People will constantly point out, hey, Clemson was picked 11th. Clemson was picked to not go to the tournament. That's true. You're very right. They weren't picked to go. But you look at the recruiting that Clemson had, and I'm looking at it where you have 3 4-stars on your team, and none of them outside of PJ really made that much of a difference this year. Lynn Kidd didn't play down the home stretch. He was supposed to be someone who could come in and maybe develop into someone who could come in for Amir Sims so he wouldn't be someone that the entire offense went through. So I don't know what's going on with the development, why they didn't get their minutes, why they didn't play as much. Maybe it was a development issue, but Amir Sims, I feel like, was all everything, and it was our demise. That, and then you can't convince me any year like this, whether it's this year 1 through 11 with Brad Brownell, as bad shooting as this team has been consistently every year, you'll never go far shooting the way they do. Made it to the Sweet 16, and that was Brad Brownell's best shooting team. You had Gabe DeVoe, Grantham, all those guys shooting the ball really well. Well, outside of that, it's looking more like an anomaly than consistency. And so, I see frustration here. I think Clemson was talented enough, had depth enough to make a run, especially in the draw they had. Part of the frustration a lot of Clemson fans had is when they saw the draw, Clemson fans were like, Clemson fans thought, hey, as a fan, we could beat Rutgers. We could beat Houston. I'm not really impressed by Houston. And then who knows? Maybe we'll
Who's really impressed by Houston, really?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And then you end up in the Sweet 16, I don't know, with maybe like Syracuse, a team that we split with during the year, and then who knows from there. And that was my thinking as a fan. Clemson got a good draw and squandered it. You watch that game on Friday night, and Clemson had 15 billion opportunities to seize control of that game. I kept saying to myself, if you can just get up by 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that during the game, and they never did. They never put their foot on the gas. They just didn't hit shots, and they lost. And that's been 11 years of this. And, the reason why I wasn't excited in the first place, you look at that Miami game, there's zero excuses for a team like Clemson to be ranked and seeded in the ACC tournament and lose to a team like Miami. Zero excuses. And so that's fine if you want to lump me into a group and say these fans don't know what they're talking about, that's fine. But you're going to be frustrated with a team that shoots 25% for the next 11 years if you don't address this at the top. I'm not going to say any specific what needs to happen, but I'm just saying there's some issues.
I take offense to the 25%. They're shooting 42.48%. All right,
no, it
from
feels
the
like
field.
25. It feels like 25.
And some of that, we talked with T.O. about this. Some of that could have been luck. Clemson has been given a very high level of luck in this season. I don't even know how you actually rank that or even evaluate that accurately. But, it goes back to the point. One thing that frustrates me, and I will say that this is a successful season. I'm going to say it again. It was a successful season. But to your point, the ACC championship game was more of a I actually felt like that Rutgers was going to beat Clemson. Now, my heartstrings pulled a little too hard. They pulled on my heartstrings there. And so I had my bracket. I had Clemson losing in the first round. Mm-hmm. And if you go check my bracket, I have Clemson going further, all the way to the Sweet 16, actually, because a day later, I slept on that, Clemson losing in the first round. I slept on that, and I said, no, I can't do this to my team. I can't do this. I love them. I can't do this. I cannot be the guy that wished them bad luck. So even though I did actually logically think that Rutgers would win because of the matchup, not because they're necessarily a better team, I just felt a matchup was better for them. I put Clemson to beat them, and that didn't help me in my tourney bracket by any means. But also, Ohio State losing didn't help me in my tourney bracket, but that made me feel great. But going back to it, the frustration, again, the ACC tournament frustrated me a lot more than the NCAA tournament. The ACC tournament, it did feel kind of uninspired. They lost to a team that I thought that they could beat. I knew that they could beat. They beat them in the regular season. And then, as Houston said, if you looked at how the bracket played out, they literally could be ACC champions right now. There was not a team in there that they couldn't have beat. They beat Florida State. They beat Georgia Tech. They beat Miami previously.
Virginia got COVID.
Virginia got COVID. And so they could have legitimately, we could be saying right now, this is the ACC champion Clemson Tigers of 2021. So knowing that's a little bit of a frustration. I'll say fundamentally, I don't mind being the greatest basketball defense ever, top 12 in the nation or 12th in the nation in scoring defense. I don't mind that. I do not like being 307th in the nation in offense. Why do you have to be? Why is it one or the other? You know what I mean? Why does it have to be we're a great defensive team, but man, we are god awful on the offense? I don't get that. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I think it all centers around, at least for this year. I can't say for every single year, but I will say for last year too with Tevin Mack, a lot of guys out here shooting threes over and over and over with no need and consistently staying cold and just continuing to try to shoot out of it with no repercussions from Brad Brownell. It seemed like he wasn't really subbing out these guys, or continuing to miss these 3-pointers. And then Allen had mentioned too, just, it just seemed like continuity too, just subbing out when wasn't necessary, seeming like, the tip off would start 2 minutes later, sub somebody out. Well, why did you put that starting 5 in if you're going to sub somebody that 2 minutes later? It doesn't add up for me. But statistically, if you look at it, 134th in 3-point percentage. All right. And that, I don't have the rank. Oh, I have the rank. So 134th in 3-point percentage, and 247th in field goal percentage, but top 100, 99th overall in 3-point attempts. And that goes back to what I was seeing this year, is that they're shooting a lot of 3-pointers and it's hurting them. And I just really wish that they would have went away from that. I actually did feel like they went away from that after that 3-game blowout and then corrected it, got the ball inside to PJ, to Amir Sims, and was a lot more successful. Drove to the basket with Dawes, drove to the basket with Honor. But yeah, it is kind of frustrating to see. I guess for me, again, I don't know if you guys agree. Al, we'll start with you. But ACC tournament was more disappointing to me. And then again, the shooting is definitely something I would like to see improve.
Yeah, look, I'm a little bit different than you guys because I couldn't care less about the ACC tournament. This is not the ACC tournament of old. I think the only reason it seems like a big deal is because, like you guys were mentioning, it seemed like the path was easier to get an ACC championship. Now, if you were going to assume, that we get past that first round and go on and win the whole thing, yeah, it's a big disappointment. But I didn't expect that. Clemson never plays well in the ACC tournament. I mean, that's almost every year we play terribly. Most of the time we're out in the first round, and that's just kind of the way it works, regardless of how good the team we face may be. So I don't care about that. The only one that matters is the NCAA tournament. So that was the bigger disappointment to me. For sure. Of course, I mean, that's the end of the season. We don't get to talk about Clemson basketball anymore after this because that's what happens. But yeah, the shooting is just a huge disappointment. I'm a 3-point guy. That's why, Terrence Oglesby was one of my favorite all-time players at Clemson because he could shoot the three from anywhere at any time, which is awesome that we get to talk to him. That's really a cool thing for me now because I love the guys that can shoot. The three-pointer is the great equalizer. You see it from Syracuse. Syracuse was a garbage team this year, and they ruined my bracket this weekend because of that 3-point shooting. I think they went like 95% from 3-point. It was absolutely insane against West Virginia. I had West Virginia playing in the championship game, actually. I wanted to go a little bit against the grain, had them playing in the championship against Gonzaga, and Syracuse completely screwed up my bracket there. I did have Gonzaga winning it all, but if you lose your other team there, you're still not going to win the thing probably. So that was kind of a rough weekend. But 3-pointers can really help you out. And I hate when I see these low-level teams, these teams that people have never heard of. They have that one guy that can hit a three anywhere on the court, anytime. He doesn't have to have this perfect wide-open shot, and we can't even get people to hit open shots. That's why it's so frustrating for me, and I just don't understand it because I know they watch these kids, and I know they're hitting in high school. I know they are. Gabe DeVoe was scoring 40 points a game in high school, and he didn't shoot good until his senior year, and he was lighting it up that year. But that's just kind of the way it goes. So I don't know where the development's coming in or where the development's not coming in or what, but it's just not happening from 3-point land. We've got to be more consistent there. I don't care about the defense. I like the fact that we play good defense. That's a very good thing. I think Brownell has gotten into a trap before recruiting more athletes than skill players, which is why we don't shoot as well, which is why we play better defense. And I think he's tried to change that philosophy. And if you've noticed these past few years, he has gotten better recruits. In fact, it's just that they haven't done so well on the court. They haven't developed as well as we thought they would on the court, or at least as early as we thought. So it's going to be really interesting to see where they go moving forward. If some of these guys improve and what they're able to do, if they're able to add a couple maybe in the transfer market or something like that. But yeah, it's going to be something's got to change for Clemson to do any better than they did this year, for sure. I don't mean necessarily a coaching change. It could be, but I just think something has to change philosophy-wise. Or else, to kind of get things moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and the other problem is, today, or I believe it's today or yesterday, John Newman saying he's going elsewhere in the transfer portal. Rumors are that there's going to be at least one more person going into the transfer portal, what I've seen on Twitter lately. So, you're going to have to go to the transfer portal, and you need to find – look, there's teams right now that were good teams that are losing a ton of players. Cincinnati and North Carolina are two teams that I can think of right now that people are transferring right and left out of. So grab somebody out of there, or the Powell kid from Auburn. But, the one thing I will give credit for Brad Brownell is he tends to find good transfer players, tends to be able to shape seasons. Well, buddy, you need to put together your best recruiting pitch right now, because this is threat level midnight for you right now. If you're, if he's back, and when I mean back is if he doesn't choose to leave for somewhere else on his own volition, next year is going to probably be a big time year. Something's got to give next year for Brad Brownell, unless he goes somewhere else. His name's been mentioned for a handful of jobs, and I don't think a team like Indiana or anybody's going to take a swing at him. But who knows? Who knows? So we'll see.
I'll tell you this. I think that it's going to be difficult considering that their, do-it-all guy Amir Sims is now graduated. He's gone, and I look on this roster, and the guys that they do have replacing are very, very young. And like you said, you got guys like John Newman the third, who showed out last year, was really impressed with how he drove to the basket, and then this year, struggled to be the sixth man. I don't know what happened with that guy, but we'll talk more about it as we're going to have another video where we're going to talk about who's going to replace Amir Sims. But thank you for being a part of this video and watching it. And make sure you leave a comment down at the bottom. We want to know what you think about the Clemson basketball team, and was this past season a success or no? Let us know in the comments. We will write back to you as well. But thanks again, Tiger fans. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our Clemson exclusive content. All right, Tiger fans, we don't just dress for success, we TS for success. That's Tiger Sports Shop. Big Al, Houston, and I all are wearing gear from Tiger Sports Shop. We shop there so much that they practically forced us to be sponsors for them. Stop by one of their 2 locations or both, 364 College Avenue, Clemson, South Carolina, or 1102 Tiger Boulevard, Clemson. If you aren't in town, no worries. Visit tigersports.com. Tell Sean and Julie that Morgan Allen in Houston sent you from the Morgan Thomas Show.